All right, friends, it's time to give you loyal listeners a discount on protein powder. You may or may not know, but I launched my very first protein powder 2 years ago. It's a grass-fed beef isolate with only 3 ingredients: grass-fed beef, either organic cacao or organic vanilla, and organic monk fruit. Now, if you don't want any of the added flavor and sweeteners, you can also just get unflavored. And no matter what flavor you choose, you're getting over 23 grams of protein per scoop, which is going to keep you full and satisfied between meals. I love starting my day with a Fab4 smoothie and breaking my fast with that much protein. It makes a serious difference in my cravings and blood sugar balance the rest of the day, and I've seen it with my clients as well. Now, I never thought I'd own a product company, but when I got pregnant with Sebastian, I realized the majority of protein powders were chemically extracted or enzymatically extracted, and I wanted to use heat and water only. I wanted minimal ingredients because we don't need those emulsifiers, fillers, or added vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. All of those additions increase the chances that it's not going to work for your body, whether it be bloating, digestion issues. I just wanted pure, clean protein to keep you full and satisfied so you could build the most delicious Fab4 smoothie. And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the flavor. If you take a look at our reviews on Amazon, you'll see 5-star reviews for flavor. And that is key, because if you don't love your Fab4 smoothie and you don't love drinking your protein powder, you're not going to do it. It won't become a habit, and it's consistency that outpaces everything. So if you're here and you're listening and you want to give our protein powder a try, use the code podcast5 for $5 off your order. And let me know if you love it. My favorite ways to apply this protein powder is in my Fab4 smoothie, making freezer fudge, making chocolate milk, making hot chocolate, and throwing the unflavored into all my kids' baked goods. So let me know how you use it. Let me know if you love it, and share this podcast deal with your friends. Siim Land is a biohacker, author, content creator, and a high-performance coach. He was raised in Estonia and has an education background in anthropology, but he's deeply passionate about self-enhancement and gradually began sharing his habits and research with his audience and coaching clients. He believes that we should all be striving to be our best selves and reach our maximum potential. He is the author of Metabolic Autophagy, which dives into cell renewal through various training and fasting techniques. His latest book, Stronger by Stress, is a manual for using our body's stress response strategically as a tool for strengthening our bodies and building resilience. Siim, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to speak with you.
Yeah, it's so good to speak with you too. You're all the way in Estonia, and so I'm just curious what it was like growing up in Estonia, and if you were raised with a lot of awareness around health.
I always been basically living in the countryside and always around like nature. My parents were, relatively health conscious and didn't have like this, bad habits around eating and things. So they were always, mindful about how many sweets we ate or how much cake we got or something like that. So I've always had like a good background in terms of health and wellness. And like in Estonia itself is also really small country. There's only like 1.5 million people here, and it's very natural. A lot of forests, a lot of seaside. I kind of enjoy it here. It's one of the kind of best places to live in, I think. And just nowadays I also, I'm able to kind of do work from online, so it doesn't like interfere with that. So I'm kind of happy here.
I love it. It sounds beautiful. So can you kind of give me an idea before we jump into your book and all the topics we're going to talk about today? Can you give me a little idea of like what your day looks like out in Estonia, from how you wake up and eat to, what you focus on throughout the day?
Right. What I do like on a daily basis is just like content creation and writing. So I usually I do something creative every day, whether that be writing an article, writing some books, researching anything, editing a video, and also like I draw a little bit as a hobby thing. So I'm doing something like creative almost every day. And what I usually like to do is like whenever I wake up in the morning, then I'll like to do the kind of most important things first. So I don't really like to push things off until the last minute of the day and be like in a hurry. So I always like enjoy getting it done as soon as possible so that I can enjoy the rest of the day and not be in in a rush. So yeah, that's why I'll wake up in the morning. I'll do like maybe short morning routine, like go outside for a little bit, stretch a little bit, and then I'll start working on whatever I'm doing, or like focusing on. And yeah, for the rest of the day, I'll once I'm finished working, then I'll maybe go for a short walk. I'll do this small kind of busy work like emails and social media and those kinds of things, while I'll maybe drink some coffee or something and kind of wind down a bit. And after that, I also usually do something physical like exercise, working out, or like the saunas or the cold plunge or whatever the day may be. I do like to get like a sweat on every day, whether that be from the sauna or the exercise, and do something like physically demanding. So yeah, that's what I usually do. And in the evening, I'll wind down, have some food, and yeah, prepare for sleep.
I love it. Well, you are quickly becoming a very well-known biohacker, and your book, Metabolic Autophagy and Stronger by Stress, both of those books have been wildly popular. So I'd love to kind of dive into the research behind sort of your daily routine and some of the things you're incorporating, like saunas and fasting and lifting and things like that. So let's start by talking about fasting, because that's a big theme throughout your book. Can you talk about the benefits of fasting on our bodies in general? And then we can dive deep into some of the biochemical processes and how they're supporting that.
Yeah, well, like fasting itself is it kind of mimics some aspects of this calorie restriction. So we know from research that calorie restriction has a lot of health benefits, like you're reducing the risk of all these chronic diseases and metabolic syndrome and diabetes, as well as in like animal studies and cell studies. The calorie restriction also has like longevity benefits, like extends lifespan and anti-aging effects. So fasting essentially is a mimic of calorie restriction. So you're able to still, the idea behind intermittent fasting is that you don't necessarily need to restrict the calories, but you do restrict the eating window in which you consume those calories. And as a result of that, your body basically turns on a lot of its own antioxidant defense systems and these other pathways that have these health benefits. And if you're like, people use it for like weight loss, people use it for productivity and time management. But there are like also like health benefits associated with that, like cardioprotective effects, neuroprotective effects, lower inflammation, and immune strengthening benefits as well. So it's kind of one example of these beneficial stressors, similar to exercise, that in the moderation actually makes your body stronger. But of course you can overdo it. But yeah, like it's just another example of this beneficial stressor that we can use.
I love it. So hormesis, a beneficial stressor. Let's talk about, you just said you can overdo it. So can we talk about what the research is suggesting is like a great time to fast, and what does too much fasting look like?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very subjective answer. Like it's very context dependent, and what may be too much for someone may not be enough for someone else. So it also depends on like how much you've gotten used to it. So if you're new to this, then anything beyond like 24 hours can be like really stressful and damaging. Whereas someone who's done like some sort of fasting and extended fasting for years, then for them it may not be that harmful at all. And likewise, like for the age can be a determining factor. So if you're older, then you're maybe more predisposed to losing muscle while you're fasting, and that can be also damaging for your overall longevity because of that. Whereas if you're younger, you're able to build muscle very easily, or rather like a bit more easily, then for you, the fasting may not be that serious. And you can do it for longer without the side effects. But generally, like what I like to think about is that like on a daily basis, you can just apply some of this time restricted eating that you basically you confine it a little bit. You maybe instead of having snacks and 6 meals a day, you only have 2 meals or 3 meals, something like that, like a 12-hour or a 16-hour window, depending on the situation. And that you already get some of the health benefits from that. And in addition to that, like you may also throw in like a few longer fasts, like a few times a year. You may go for a 48-hour fast or a 72-hour fast. And there are some people who also go for like this really crazy long fast, like 7 or 10 days. But I personally think that it's not like really worth it. And there isn't any like researchers saying that you need to fast for like 3 or 5 days to get some health benefits. Like you already get some significant increase in these health longevity markers by fasting even as little as like 16 hours or 24 hours. So yeah, you don't necessarily need to, go for a 3-day fast, because that can be quite damaging to the thyroid, and it can also cause like this, rebound syndrome that you fast, you lose a bunch of weight, but you kind of get so hungry and get these massive cravings, and you kind of basically binge afterwards. So it's kind of not worth it, in my opinion. And yeah, I like to keep it at most, maybe 40 to 48 hours, 72 hours at the most. But, on a daily basis, the 16-hour fasting window is already good enough.
And I love that you're not stressing these really long, stressful fasts as being the only way to go, because we're seeing the biochemical benefits at, just a 16-hour fast. So can we talk a little bit about what some of those benefits are specifically? Maybe can we talk about autophagy and some of the other markers like AMPK and mTOR?
Yeah, well,
and insulin too, because I love insulin.
Yeah, well, I think that is one of the main benefits, or the fastest benefits that you see, is this drop in blood sugar and drop in fasting insulin. And, obviously that's very beneficial for treating diabetes or managing the symptoms of insulin resistance. So, yeah, like if you are, eating too much or eating too many carbs or eating too frequently, then you're basically keeping your blood sugar high all the time. And this hyperglycemia is just damaging to the blood vessels. It's going to scar the arteries and cause inflammation, and also weakens the immune system. So you don't want to be you would want to have like a slightly more balanced and a more, in this stable blood sugar levels. And the fasting is a great way to achieve that, because if you're not eating anything, then your body will eventually basically run out of its liver glycogen stores. And once the liver glycogen gets depleted, then the body switches over into this ketosis, which means that your body starts to use the fats and ketones as a main fuel source. And this shift usually happens around like 16 hours or something. For some people, it can even happen less. If you restrict your carbohydrates a little bit, then it can happen even like within 12 hours or so. But yeah, generally around that time. Like an overnight fast is a good thing to be, that you want to be in this mild ketosis after waking up in the morning. And you like most people, just they start eating immediately and they stop this process. So they go back into the roller coaster of this blood sugar. And that's also the time period where the AMPK switch gets turned on. So this once the liver glycogen is depleted, then this AMPK switch turns on. And AMPK is like a nutrient sensor that detects low liver glycogen. And as a result of that, it starts to promote ketosis and also starts to promote this process called autophagy. And autophagy is basically translates into self-eating. And the role of autophagy is very wide. It can, the main role is just to recycle this old junk material inside the cell, like these broken cell particles, mitochondria, even like bacteria or these infections, and just this excess inflammation and senescent cells, these zombie cells. The autophagy is going to start to clear those things out. And yeah, that's usually, it also happens around the 16-hour mark where you start to see this process turning on. And the opposite of autophagy is this mTOR that you mentioned. And mTOR is a good and a bad thing. Like mTOR is needed to basically survive and be alive. You need mTOR to make cells grow, and cell replication and muscle growth. All those things need mTOR. And too little mTOR can lead to muscle loss and frailty, bone mineral density loss. Those bad things. So you don't want to be basically too low mTOR all the time either. But excess mTOR can also be bad if you. It's going to lead to some research indicates that it may promote the growth of some of these malignancies and cancerous cells if it's turned on all the time. So if you are eating like the standard American diet with too many calories, and you're also eating 6 times a day, then your mTOR is almost turned on all the time. And that's why some sort of this time-restricted eating is going to help you to reduce that and balance it with the autophagy process.
Definitely. I'd love for you to talk about the balance between AMPK and mTOR. I have seen some research, and I have, I personally eat animal protein, but I know that there is a connection between protein and mTOR. And there is a kind of an upswell of eating an animal-based diet is going to create too much mTOR, which is going to create cancer, and it's not good for you. Can you talk about
having a balance between AMPK and mTOR if you're wanting to eat an animal-based diet, and how that may be protective or beneficial to your body?
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Usually, it is associated that animal protein, because it raises mTOR, that is going to accelerate aging and basically promote cancer. But there is no human studies ever done about that, and it's always on the cell studies and very theoretical, basically. So in theory, you can't really avoid activating mTOR. mTOR is going to be turned on not by animal protein only, but also any kind of protein, whether it comes from plants or animals. So even if you eat like beans, you're still going to turn on mTOR, and it's a very sensitive switch as well. Like even a few grams of protein is going to turn on, and besides the protein, there's also carbohydrates and insulin that turns on mTOR. So if you're eating a high carb diet but just restricting protein, then you're still going to turn on mTOR.
Yeah.
So in theory, the theory is very false, and it's not really. There's no real evidence to show that it's true. And likewise, you can do some sort of, let's say you do intermittent fasting and you eat only 2 meals a day, but those meals have animal protein, then you're stimulating mTOR only twice a day, which is very insignificant and very small compared to still eating 4 to 5 meals a day and spiking the mTOR all the time, even if you're eating plant-based. So which one is worse? Spiking mTOR 2 times a day with animal protein, or spiking mTOR 5 times a day with the plant-based protein? So it's the eating frequency is also something that people don't really take into account. And if you are doing some sort of, let's say, intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating, then you're already balancing the mTOR and lowering it down with the autophagy process.
Mic drop. Yeah. No, I love that you just explained that, because I think there is just such a misunderstanding in regards to how it works, why it's activated, and how we can pull back. I have, when I first started my practice, all I was trying to do was get people off 5 to 6 small meals a day and get them to understand how to balance and elongate their blood sugar curve with fewer meals, saying that we didn't need snacks and that 3 meals a day was good. Can we talk about moving to 2 meals a day if you are looking to, not lose muscle mass, really, benefit your immune system, all of these blood markers? What's the best way for someone to get started with that if they wanted to try it?
Yeah, well, jumping head in first is can be effective for some people, but it can also be backfiring for the others. So you have to know which kind of a person are you. And if you are struggling with, let's say, hunger signals, then going for 2 meals immediately or 1 meal is probably not going to be the smartest idea, because you're just going to get so hungry and you can't willpower yourself through it, and eventually you're just going to cave in. So what I think is, the first place to start would be to just limit the amount of snacks that you have. Just have 3 square meals a day, and just don't snack, because the snacking is another one of those things that just catches up on you, and you don't really even notice how many calories are you actually snacking if you have the habit. Just have the habit that whenever you do eat something, then it's you actually sit down and enjoy it and be mindful about it. So that will just develop this more mindfulness about your food intake, as well as at least help you to experience some mild hunger without going into full on starvation feelings. So that's why 3 meals is good. And as you get slightly more used to that, then maybe skip 1 meal or on some days, but you necessarily have to do it every day. Just kind of cycle back and forth between having breakfast, not having breakfast, and eventually you may end up with this 2 meals a day. But I think the minimal effective dose for the fasting is 12 or 14 hours is probably the minimal effective dose that you want. The average American, the research shows that they eat over the course of 16 hours, which means that they basically start eating right after waking up, and right before going to bed, they finish eating. So that's definitely not the good thing, and that's going to basically maintain this anabolic and mTOR state all the time, and it also disrupts the circadian rhythms. That's going to reduce your sleep quality and also causes some other problems. So that's why at least 12 to 14 hours is going to be the 50-50 kind of balance.
I love it. Starting with an easy approach of making sure that you're not eating more than 12 hours, and then working your way to 14, working your way to 16, making sure that you're ditching those snacks really awesome recommendations. Let's talk a little bit more about how fasting supports circadian rhythm and when in the day we should be eating versus not eating and how it can impact our sleep.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned the circadian rhythms, and they're basically the body's inner diurnal rhythms that are linked to the day and night cycles of the environment. And these circadian rhythms, they run almost every process in the body. Metabolism is linked to that, your sleep cycles, your cognition, your muscle strength, your muscle growth, fat loss, the autophagy process, growth hormone, all those things have this circadian rhythm. And every organ, every cell has their own clock. And they work based upon the light cues coming from the environment, like the sunlight, the artificial light, or darkness. All those things affect those clocks. And the food is another one that can also affect them, primarily with the function of pancreas, the liver, and the gut. The gut also has the clock. And time restricted eating emerged as a concept from this circadian rhythm research. And usually the researchers find that just confining the eating window within 8 hours or less has all these health benefits, reduces inflammation and balances blood sugar, reduces triglycerides, and activates also these longevity pathways. So that's generally the good reason to, and even you don't even necessarily need to restrict the calories to achieve those benefits. So just the confining window is where the magic happens. And when it comes to sleep, then what some people generally it is more appropriate to think that eating during the daytime is going to be healthier because it's the sun is out, the humans are supposed to be active, and the clocks are also running more for that time. You're more insulin sensitive during daytime. You're more carbohydrate tolerant. It makes sense to be eating slightly earlier, or at least you don't want to be eating in the darkness and immediately before bed. But if you compare some actual human groups between people who skip breakfast and they eat 2 meals versus people who skip dinner and they eat lunch and dinner, then there's not a huge difference between the health results of those people. Both have lower blood sugar and both have all these other healthy biomarkers. So I think which one suits for you. You have to kind of figure out: do you want to skip breakfast or do you want to skip dinner? Both can work. And just to figure out which one is kind of suitable for your lifestyle. One thing that you can get away with is that although your body is more insulin resistant in the evening, you can get away with it by exercising before eating. So exercise is one of the best things that makes you insulin sensitive and depletes your body's glycogen stores. And basically, you can eat you can eat more carbs after exercise without experiencing higher blood sugar because your body uses that glucose very efficiently and kind of shuttles it into the muscle cells for recovery. So even if you are eating later in the day, if you exercise before that, then it doesn't matter that you eat slightly later. So that's kind of hack.
I love it. You've dumped your tanks of stored glycogen and they are hungry for more glucose and storing that stuff up. No, I think that's phenomenal. Anytime I have clients that want to be eating later, that want to be incorporating more carbohydrates, that a workout is one of the best ways to make sure that it's not dysregulating their blood sugar and they're not going to bed with elevated blood sugar. That's great. Can we talk a little bit more about carb tolerance? How would someone understand what their carb tolerance is? And are you using any tech to understand your own blood sugar?
Yeah, well, the carbohydrate tolerance and insulin sensitivity is also very subjective. And one of the best or the biggest predictors of that is just muscle mass and resistance training. So if you're physically active and you have higher muscle mass, then your carbohydrate tolerance is also by default higher. Things get worse if you're sedentary and overweight and you're not really increasing your carbohydrate demand. So your body, most of the day, your body runs very well on fats because of you're not really exerting yourself that much. You're staying in this very low intensity state, gardening, walking, just, moving around. Those things, they're burning primarily fats for fuel. Your body starts to use carbs and glycogen only if you're doing some, intense sprinting or lifting weights and plyometrics, whatever it may be. Those things will deplete the glycogen. And that's why people who aren't exercising at all, they're sedentary, then they can't really eat a ton of carbohydrates because, their blood sugar is going to stay elevated and they're insulin resistant. Like their cells are full of the glucose and the glycogen, and they become resistant as a result of that. So the easiest way to do that or to fix that would be to just incorporate more physical activity. And there's also like genetics and other things that can also affect that. So some people have like allergies to foods, then they may get like a higher blood sugar spike from eating a banana, whereas someone else doesn't really spike at all. So it's a very nuanced. So one of the best tools for tracking that, in my opinion, is the continuous glucose monitor. So you have this basically device on your arm, like that. It's a very easy and convenient way to just see how you respond to different foods. And using that data, you can also assess, okay, am I eating enough carbs or am I eating too much? So if you're like having massive spikes after every meal, then I need to kind of lower the carbohydrate content of that meal so that it will be, within a more healthy range.
I love that. So if someone wants to build muscle and increase their carb tolerance and really just decrease their fasting glucose, obviously that's one of the best ways to do it. What recommendations do you make to your clients as a high performance coach for building strong muscle? I mean, I've seen some of your before and afters and it's impressive. What are you doing to get there?
Yeah, well,
lifting heavy.
That is there's a lot of let's say the average person doesn't really like to lift weights, and they think that the healthiest form of exercise is just cardio, that they should go for a run, which is like not the most sustainable option, because like you do burn calories when you're doing cardio, but your body doesn't change. It stays the same, and you're not really forcing it to adapt. Whereas with resistance training, if you're progressively getting stronger by that, then you're signaling your body that it needs to build muscle and it needs to get stronger. So every time you lift weights, your body gets stronger, it builds muscle, and therefore you're more insulin sensitive and more carbohydrate tolerant as a result of that as well. Resistance training in any form, whether that be with barbells, kettlebells, dumbbells, resistance bands, or your own body weight, calisthenics, all those things, those are the biggest factors to muscle growth. So you need to basically get stronger in those exercises. And there's different like rep ranges you can use. But the main idea is that you need to kind of get stronger in a particular exercise. And secondly, like besides the exercise, there's also the nutritional component. So higher protein intake is going to be also conducive of more muscle growth, because your body's made of protein. And in order to build new protein, new muscles, it needs an additional intake of protein as well. And like a lot of people either just aren't aware of that, or they're afraid of protein, or they don't like find the protein sources that appealing or satiating, like just like meat or eggs or fish. Those foods, they're very satiating and fulfilling, but they're not like pizza or donuts, so to say. They're not as tasty as those foods. Eating enough protein is going to be the secondary most important thing.
Not the highly palatable stuff that most people want to eat. But I love protein. I'm a huge fan of it. I feel like I'm pounding my little drum over here in California that women, if they're looking to have strong muscles and bring their blood sugar down and not have to be fighting this yo-yo diet, that muscles are the key to that, and protein is supportive of that. How do you plan your exercises around your meals and food intake? And what does your protein intake look like post-workout, I'm assuming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, generally, the recommended amount for optimal muscle growth would be approximately like 0.8 to 1.0 grams per pound of lean body mass in protein per day. So for like an average 160 pound person, that would be about 145 to 160 grams of protein per day. That would be like the upper threshold for the optimal muscle growth benefits. And I think that like most people would be well off with that, because protein also burns a lot of calories for digestion. So it's also good for fat loss. So if you eat more protein, then your body will basically burn more calories. Even then, even if you want to lose weight, then a higher protein diet is still better. 1 gram is the upper threshold. The lowest you may get away with is like 0.7 or 0.6, but beyond that or lower than that is probably not going to be that's beneficial for muscle growth. And in terms of the meal timing, then the research about that shows that, generally the most optimal thing for muscle growth is to have these frequent meals, like 4 to 5 meals per day, if you want to fully maximize muscle growth. But most people aren't interested in becoming like bodybuilders. They're not competing, so they don't need to have the 4 to 5 meals of protein either. So as long as you're getting adequate amounts of protein per day, then you will at least maintain muscle, and you will probably build it as well. So you can have it in 3 meals, 2 meals. Like 1 meal a day is, let's say, hard to build muscle with, because you are like only eating once, and you would need like a more steadier supply of these amino acids and proteins to build muscle. So anywhere from 2 to 3 meals is already pretty good for muscle growth for most people, especially if they're doing this intermittent fasting as well.
And if they're breaking up, they're 100, like you said, 160 pounds, and they're between 145 and 160 grams a day, are you splitting that 160 evenly over those 3 meals? Or are you is it, because if you're an OMAD, there's no way that you're sitting down to 160 grams of protein, or are you? That's crazy.
Right. Well, you can definitely slice it up. I think the minimal amount of protein you should have per meal is like 30 or 40 grams. So that would be enough to fully maximize the muscle protein synthesis from that meal. So that would be good, the minimal amount per meal. If you're having 2 meals a day, then I would, maybe I personally like to have more of the calories and more protein in the post-workout, after the workout, because then your body would be basically more sensitive to that and use them for like faster recovery. So if I were to have like 2 meals a day, then I would have maybe like 40% or 30 to 40% of the calories and protein before working out, and the rest of them in the after workouts. But it also depends on the person. Some people may feel like they don't have enough energy, they don't eat more food, and they may get tired. So it depends on the person. I don't really experience that, but generally I would do it like that. I
love it. This is great information for everyone. Can we head back to fasting a little bit and talk about some of the joys of fasting, the stress of fasting, and specifically BDNF?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
The mental benefits of fasting.
So as it turns out, fasting is also good for the brain and helps with cognition and focus. So this BDNF that you mentioned is a brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and it's basically this growth factor in the brain that helps with the growth of new brain cells, as well as neuroplasticity. So making better connections, more connections, and enabling the firing of neurons. And BDNF also has antidepressive effects and better memory and those sort of things. So from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense, because of fasting is this survival scenario that you are in scarcity, and in order to come out of that alive, then you need to be fully alert and more focused than ever before. So that's why exercise also increases BDNF. So you're kind of chasing the animal, and you're more motivated to get it because you're hungry, and your body kind of incentivizes you to succeed more by releasing all these neurotrophic factors. And I personally find that fasting has a really good effects on the focus and cognition. So I don't really after I become more used to the fasting, then I don't have this swings in my focus during the daytime, because my body starts to burn its own body fat for fuel, and it's very alert or focused.
Good at tapping into your endogenous substrates, which is so awesome.
Yeah.
So can you talk about metabolism then, and what determines someone's metabolism? Can you explain the difference between building and breaking down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the metabolism is basically the result or the collection of all these metabolic processes inside the body, and it's always running. It's always doing something, and it's either building up or it's breaking down. And usually, when you're, let's say, in a fasted state, then you're breaking down. You're in autophagy. You're breaking down fat stores. You're breaking down glycogen, and that's where your body is also recycling all these different fuel sources and particles. Whereas if you eat something you shift from the fasted state into the fed state. And that's where you have like higher mTOR expression, and that's where your body is repairing itself and building itself up again. So you don't want to be like, too catabolic or too breaking down. You want to be achieving like this semi-balance that during some parts of the day, you want to be slightly catabolic to reap all these longevity benefits. But the other times of the day, you want to also be anabolic, where you're growing and building up to repair the damage and actually get stronger. So yeah, like I said, too much mTOR is bad, but too little mTOR is also not good. And the same with autophagy. Too much autophagy can be harmful, and definitely too little is also not good.
I love the balance effect. I love that you can get it done in one day, and that and you can plan your day around that. It sounds like you start your day in a fasted state, you get your creativity out, you go into a fed state, you work out, and you feed again. Is that pretty much on average the way that you're working and feeding yourself throughout the day?
Yeah, that's what I usually do. Yeah. So that if I am focused or something, then I don't want to be distracted by like eating or distracted by cravings or something. I'll much rather stay in this highly alert state, like this slightly, the fasting is a stressor in moderation. So you have like these higher stress hormones and higher these neurotropic factors as well. So I like to take advantage of it by just doing something creative. And after my workout, that's where I want to, do the opposite. I want to wind down, relax, and instigate all these repair processes and stimulate recovery.
I love it. Can we talk about some activities that also create hormesis, like the cold plunge and the sauna? And I'd love to know if you drink caffeine throughout your day or use neurotropics. Like, what are some of the tools in your toolbox outside of feeding and fasting?
Yeah, well, I'm in Estonia, so the sauna is pretty popular here, and most people sauna on a regular basis. So the sauna is a good example of another hormesis. And the technical term that's happening is hyperthermia. So you're elevating your body temperature when you are sitting in a sauna. And as a result of that, your body also releases some of these pathways. Like it does have like autophagy benefit. It does have AMPK benefit. And it tends to also like lower inflammation and kill off some of these senescent cells. So one of the unique things about the sauna is that it helps to also excrete the toxins and through sweat. So you do get it from the exercise as well if you sweat a lot. But the sauna is a good way to kind of have like a detoxification effect by eliminating maybe these heavy metals or pesticides and these other like non-organic compounds. So yeah, it's a good habit to have like at least some sort of sweating practice, whether with a sauna or just a vigorous exercise on a daily basis. And other benefits of the sauna, the research in Finland finds that it has an immense benefit on like the cardiovascular risk factors, like lowers the risk of cardiovascular disease as well as cardiovascular disease mortality. Quite a lot, like it's even up to like 40% for people who take it more than 4 times a week compared to those who do it only once or twice a week. So even within those cohorts who already sauna at least once a week, even between those people, there is quite a large difference between the reduced mortality. So imagine how big the difference is between those who don't take it at all. So it can be up to like 60% reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease mortality. So yeah, I think that's a very good habit or good thing for the heart and just the cardiovascular health system.
What do you think the optimal time to sauna is and the optimal length of time?
Usually the best health benefits start to come around like 15 or 20 minutes. So that's where you turn on these heat-shock proteins that also repair these broken cells and eliminate these different particles. So that is maybe the optimal amount. Minimal amount would be, if you want to just get a good like a sweat on, then maybe 10 minutes can be enough. But yeah, optimal, I would say 20 minutes. And too much of it can be like anything up to like 45 minutes is probably like pushing it too much because you do lose like electrolytes and sodium from the sweat as well. So staying there for too long is probably not a good idea.
Let's talk about electrolytes and minerals and how important they are and what you recommend. How would someone, let's go deep. How would someone know if they have deficiencies? How can they supplement? What are your recommendations there? because I love sodium.
yeah. So salt and sodium is really like villainized, that it's is associated with hypertension and atherosclerosis, but usually it's not necessarily the sodium or the salt. It's just the insulin resistance and diabetes that actually makes your body retain more of the salt. So if you fix the insulin resistance and you lower your blood sugar, then sodium is actually quite crucial and vital. So, for example, if you're deficient in sodium, then you may become like more insulin resistant. So even like healthy subjects who are on a low salt intake, they become insulin resistant because of the stress and the cortisol that they experience. And the salt is also needed for basically producing ATP. Salt is needed to kind of produce thyroid hormones. So like a very vital thing. And for exercise performance, especially, like if you're deficient in salt and other electrolytes, then you may just experience cramps and fatigue, lethargy, and your performance is definitely not optimal. Like I think salt is you don't necessarily need to be on like a very high salt intake, but you don't need to be like afraid of it either, as long as you're eating like a whole foods diet. So naturally, humans would get salt from the spring water, there's other kind of water sources, as well as even like these animal foods. Like they would eat like the bones or something. Those foods have like a high amount of salt actually and sodium. So hunter-gatherers, they get salt from basically all the food, and it is slightly higher than usually people think. Like usually people think that they got only like 2,000 milligrams a day, but actuality they may get up to like 3,000 or 4,000 or like up to 5,000.
I love it. I've noticed a major benefit in incorporating more sodium in my diet. I eat a primarily whole foods diet. I salt my food liberally. I'm not afraid of salt. I haven't been, but even increasing salt intake for me has been an amazing benefit. Just I sweat a lot, working out, sauna, and didn't realize how much I was purging. So I feel phenomenal with salt.
Yeah.
Can we talk?
Like
Go ahead.
I want to mention, like you lose about 1,500 milligrams of sodium per, as well as 1,500 milligrams of chloride per hour of exercise. So if you are exercising every hour every day, then you lose like 3,000 milligrams or 2,400 milligrams of salt every day. So you do need to kind of replenish it.
Definitely. Absolutely. Well, I think that is a great recommendation for people. And so outside of sauna and heat and sweating and replacing our minerals, the opposite of that is the cold plunge that you mentioned. Can we talk about how that's working, what the optimal amount of time is, and how someone can biohack that in their own house?
Yeah, well, in Estonia, it's pretty easy, or at least like during the winter, it's easy. It's not that easy in California, probably, but it's generally the cold has also some good health benefits. It's mostly to do with the immune system. So it increases these antioxidant defense systems in the body, like glutathione, and it also turns on some of the longevity pathways, like phosphoproteins that essentially help to also turn on autophagy and these other like longevity functions. But the cold is something that I think should be taken more carefully, so it's easier to overdo it, and it may also have like more negative side effects compared to like the sauna or exercise. So if you do the cold too much or too often, then you may have like experience low thyroid because of that, or you get like neuropathy or something. Usually I think like I like to do the cold for maybe only like 1 to 2 minutes at max, and not any more than a few times a week. So most people do it only once a week, which is fine. Like the minimal effective dose would be like once a week for 60 seconds or something. Usually the most effective way to do it would be like with an ice bath or just like cold water in some sort of a lake. The cold showers are also good. I used to do the cold showers every day in the morning, and there are a good way to kind of start off. But yeah, like the cold you do get like the benefits of the cold from that, and you activate the brown fat, which basically means that the fat is more metabolically active, so that you can use it to produce heat as well as use it to burn energy with, and makes you more insulin sensitive. So the white fat is the kind of the just the fat that you use to burn calories with, and it doesn't have like any other metabolic function. Whereas the brown fat that you turn on with things like fasting as well as exercise and the cold, that fat is more healthy, basically. But yeah, I think any form of cold can be a good way to kind of just increase your body's overall resilience and have like this immunostrengthening effect.
I love that you just touched on brown fat and white fat. Can you talk about how someone might increase their brown fat and decrease the white amount of fat, and what is associated with more or less of each of those?
Yeah. Brown fat is usually located in the upper back, upper chest, and the kind of a middle chest part. And it's like I said, it's mostly used for thermal regulation, keeps your body warm, makes your body more cold tolerant, and also makes you more insulin sensitive. Whereas the white fat is basically just located everywhere else, and it's used mostly like this store of calories that your body uses. And it is possible to, let's say, convert the white fat into brown fat. It's called like the beiging of the adipose tissue. And things that do that are all the cold and the AMPK pathway, or the AMPK switch is one of those things that helps with this conversion. So anything like exercise, ketosis, fasting, those things will help with the conversion of that white fat into the brown fat. But yeah, the cold itself will grow the new brown fat as well.
I love it. Well, you just touched on it, so we'll go there. Let's talk about ketosis and when and how it's beneficial for people, and if you recommend it for everyone.
Well, ketosis is basically, you do experience ketosis in many ways. You do experience it when you're fasting, but you can also just mimic that with carbohydrate restriction. So if you're eating low carb, then you will eventually go into ketosis. And ketosis has also some similar benefits as fasting. Like has neuroprotective effects, lowers inflammation, lowers blood sugar, keeps your energy stable, and it's something that people can use every once in a while to also cause this beneficial hormesis. But I don't think that you need to be in ketosis all the time. And some people may do worse with it. So, for example, if you're chronically in ketosis, then your body may actually lose its ability to tolerate carbohydrates. So because you're not eating carbs, your body isn't producing insulin either. And eventually the cells become insulin resistant. So you're at a like weaker spot in a sense. And whenever you do introduce the carbs back in, then you would have like a worse time dealing with those carbohydrates. Whereas if you do like some ketosis cyclically, then you can avoid that because of keeping the carbs regularly, so your body still maintains its insulin sensitivity and the carbohydrate tolerance. So that's why I think a more cyclical approach is more like this flexible and just healthier as well in general.
I love that. Staying metabolically flexible, being able to go from gas operation to battery operation in your little Prius car. What would be cyclical for you? What would that look like in someone's life? And if they wanted to start applying cyclical ketosis, what would you recommend?
I think that's one of the easiest ways to assess that would be to look at your physical activity. So if you are more physically active, then you probably would need a bit more carbohydrates as well, just for the recovery as well as the performance. So like, especially high intensity exercise, if you're doing like CrossFit or HIIT classes and bodybuilding or something, then you do need more carbs, or at least your performance would be a lot better if you do have those carbs. I think what I do is I usually eat low carb on my rest days because I'm not exercising, so I don't need them. And whenever I do have like a workout, then I'll just increase the carbohydrate intake a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a lot. Like you don't need to go on pizzas or ice cream or something. You can have just like an additional sweet potato or maybe like a little bit of quinoa or rice next to your average meal. So that's how I like to cycle it. Looking at my like exercise frequency and intensity.
I love that. I love that you mentioned cellular carbohydrates too, like your rice, your quinoa, your sweet potato versus acellular flours and breads and things like you were just saying. That if someone were to get started and want to, I love it because you're allowing your body to naturally become metabolically flexible, using fasting to your advantage and going low carb on the days that you're resting. I think that's actually It's a phenomenal recommendation. Is there anything from your book that you think that people would benefit from learning about?
Well, I think the last kind of thing to bring it together would be the sleep. Your body is good to stress out your body and expose it to all these beneficial stressors. But none of those things are going to be beneficial, or they're not going to work unless you sleep well. So sleep is where all these stimuli gets basically installed, and all the muscle growth happens. The fat loss actually happens during sleep. Autophagy happens mostly during sleep, and that's where the growth happens. So you need to exert yourself hard, but you need to also rest harder and recover from it fully. So sleep deprivation is just horrible, and it's probably want to be undermining all these efforts that people may have.
So can we talk about what does optimal sleep look like? How do we have great sleep hygiene? What should people be aiming for in regards to length of time?
Well, the length of time is probably around like 7 to 8 hours is the good healthy amount. Some people who are like maybe very physically active may need like 9, but most people need like 7 to 8. And at minimum, like a healthy, you can get away with probably like 6 hours as well. But like ideally 7 to 8 is the best amount. And the timing of that is that would be work. There are like some chronotypes differences. So some people are more morning larks, and some are night owls. So, but the difference isn't like huge. It can be like an hour or two difference, but not like a super massive difference. But ideally, humans would be considered like diurnal creatures. Like we are supposed to sleep at night and be awake at daytime. So, ideally, you probably want to be in bed before midnight and not stay up any longer than that. And waking up with the sunrise or as close to it as possible is also healthy, because you're getting this circadian signal from the sun, and the morning sun especially helps you to kind of synchronize the circadian clocks immediately and start the day properly. So you get a better hormonal and circadian rhythm synchronization from that. And funny enough, like the morning sunlight also like stimulates these receptors in the eyes, but also helps you to basically produce melatonin at night. So if you wake up in the morning with the sunrise or around that time, then you will also probably sleep better at night because of that.
I love it. Syncing our circadian rhythms by going outside first thing in the morning, getting that morning light, and making sure that you're getting the benefits of all of this time-restricted eating, all of your strength training, all your proper nutrition. It's awesome. You talk about something called the warrior diet. Can you explain what the warrior diet is and how it's benefiting you?
Yeah, well, the warrior diet is a book by some other researcher, Ori Hofmeckler, and he's like one of the oldest or the first like online people who recommended intermittent fasting, like back in 2004 or something. He first came out with a book, and the warrior diet is basically like eating like one meal a day, and he does it maybe like within a 4-hour window or something. So it's not like necessarily one meal, but it's like you fast the daytime, you have a workout, and you eat basically for dinner. So that's how it is. Like I personally enjoy something similar. I do have like one meal a day on most days, but on some other days I'll have like more meals. But yeah, like it's once I've gotten used to it, it doesn't really affect my performance at the gym and stuff like that, or muscle growth. So it's slightly harder for the average person, but I think I've kind of gotten used to it, and I also enjoy just the kind of time management thing that I just have to worry about eating once a day.
Yeah, it's something on your to-do list, right? I love that. Yeah, definitely take it slow. Get to 3 meals, ditch your processed food snacks, start taking advantage of 14 to 16-hour fast, and eating whole foods and supplementing with minerals. I love it. So many great tips today. Thank you so much, Siim, for your time. Can you tell people where they can follow along, where they can buy your book and learn more?
Yeah, definitely. Like I'm Siim Land on all the social media platforms, and my books are on Amazon, Stronger by Stress and Metabolic Autophagy, as well as the Mineral Fix with Dr. James Dinkle Estonia.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I'll make sure everything is tagged in the show notes so that everyone can follow along.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at bewellbykelly.com and follow me on Instagram at bewellbykelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.